Hey everyone, we are back once again with another book review with a little bit of an updated setup. I mean, now I look like one of those YouTubers. Which one? I don't know. Everyone has this kind of setup nowadays. But I thought might as well upgrade it with some lights. There aren't any powerful ones that I could get, but it is what it is. But this month was exciting because I read all of the Three Body Problem Trilogy, which includes Three Body Problem, The Dark Forest, and Death's End. I completed all of those, and I have some big thoughts about those books. So, let's just get into it. How we're going to take this is that I'm going to talk about each book one by one. So, first Three Body Problem, then The Dark Forest, then The Death's End. And then at the end of the day, I will give you my collective thoughts on the trilogy and maybe even rate it. I'm not sure. I don't really like rating books, even though I did a tier list for some books. But yeah, we'll see how that goes. But without further ado, let's go. Also, one thing, I did review Three Body Problem in the last video, but I was like, it's a trilogy. Might as well do all three in the same video as well. So I might repeat some things I said about the Three Body Problem in the previous video, but doesn't really matter. So here we go. Starting with Three Body Problem. I'm not sure if any of you have watched the previous video, but I did get 150 views on the previous video. I was like, damn. But if you guys watched that previous video, you would know that my thoughts on that book are a bit 50-50. In fact, for all of the trilogy, my thoughts are a bit 50-50 because Three Body Problem, the original book, is a really slow burn. Most of the start I don't really like because it's too slow. It has too much of a, I won't even say build up, but background stories and all that. It has too much of that. I really think that in Three Body Problem especially, the starting could have been done in a much better way, so it doesn't get like it isn't so slow. Because if you read, by the way, this is going to have spoilers, so I'm going to give you a warning. So if you have read Three Body Problem yourself, or if you haven't, the start, they build up this scenario where China is going through a big change, and they have a what do you call it? Revolution? Whatever. Well, China has this thing going around where scientists are getting killed, and it's a very grim environment, and they paint this picture of how science and American science especially isn't really seen in good light because it is capitalist and all that. That's one more thing I did not like about Three Body Problem. When you start reading the book, it starts to get really preachy in the beginning. I said this in the previous video as well, but while reading the Three Body Problem, in the start, it really felt like it was just capitalism bad, capitalism bad. But I really don't think it was that necessary, because after that plays no role in the whole grand scheme of things. The whole build up that they do in the start, it plays very little role in the trilogy. It doesn't really matter that much. Most of the things that happen, they never even bring up. But as I said, that book is kind of a slow burn, because as you start getting into the middle of it, when they start introducing some really unique concepts, this book has some really unique concepts about space and aliens and all that. When you start reading it, it does not seem like that it's going to be about aliens and cosmic stuff, but it really builds itself up slowly and surely. And by the end of the book, when I completed it, I can say for sure that I was left surprised, if I'm going to be completely honest. I was not expecting that from this book, what it gave me and what it had to offer. It didn't even feel like it in the start that it was going to have such an expansive world and it is going to talk about such interesting topics, but it did. And if you manage to go through that starting bit where it isn't really for many people, I don't think many of the people who start reading this book are going to get past the first section, because it is kind of that slow. And if you are someone who likes reading like fast-paced stuff, the book, it won't really be it for you. But if you manage to get past that, the book has some great fantastic story to offer. But in those interesting concepts, there are a few setbacks as well. Specifically, I want to talk about the main character of the book, which is Wong. And that character is an anomaly, because throughout the whole book, that character has no character development at all. He just exists. It really seems like when you are reading the book that the character just exists and everything is happening around him. That kind of plays itself well in the sense that universe is all around us and there are cosmic stuff happening, and Wong is this insignificant character throughout it. But it just doesn't feel right when you have like a protagonist that you are seeing the world through, and he has no character development, no ideas of his own as well. The things just happen around him and he just happens to be there. That's how it feels. And right now I'm not really sure what I actually exactly think about the character. For me it's just it isn't really that astounding or something, or a character, a very very memorable character, because by the end of the trilogy I almost completely forgot about Wong. That's how like insignificant the character feels. And again, that kind of plays well, but it doesn't play that well. Three Body Problem, I won't really say I like it that much after reading the second book, but I really feel like that it sets up the second book quite well, because the second book is where it's at. The Dark Forest, oh my god, that book is amazing, but we'll get to that. If Three Body Problem was on its own, I wouldn't be like, this is like a, you have to read this in your lifetime kind of book, but it really lends itself well to what happens in the second book, and it really helps you set up the whole world for the second book, which is where it's at, because the second book is absolutely amazing. Now it's time to talk about the second book, and oh my god, I absolutely love this book. It pretty much addresses everything and every gripe I had about the first book, which was it was very slow paced at the start. The main character I don't really like or care about that much because he feels so insignificant. But in this book, they address all of it, and this book is so damn good. While reading the first book, which was the Three Body Problem, it was kind of a slow burn, and when I was reading it, it wasn't really that exciting that I have to keep going, and I was like, no, I have to finish it today. But this book was like that, because I finished it so damn quickly, and because it was so interesting. The first few parts, the first 10 pages have those same kind of slow build up, but I think for this book that's very very necessary to build up the main character, because the main character in this book has so much personality in him, and I feel like the main character of this book is just far better than the main character in the first one. It's so well written. He has personality. Throughout the book you start caring about him, even though he might not be the best person, but you do start caring about him. That's how you know a character is well written. But while reading this book, I was constantly like, no, I can't stop. I have to keep reading. This is where it gets interesting. This is where it gets interesting. This is building up more. Oh my, like continuously it gave you like those hit points where you were like, damn, I need to continue. And I think, wait a second, my mic is tweaking. And I really love that about this book. Again, the concepts in this book are so damn interesting, and something that I haven't really seen in major sci-fi franchises, Star Wars, Star Trek, but in this it really feels like everything is grounded. Everything is grounded in reality, and you can picture yourself in that kind of world and in that kind of catastrophe, and it really feels like it dives into human psychology as well, and how humans will react if a cosmic horror descends upon them or a cosmic threat descends upon them. And it really gives you that perspective quite well. While the previous book was more about setting everything up, this book takes all of that setting and just bumps it up 100 notches, because shit starts to happen in this book. But the shit starts to happen in the end of the book. So the first part or few chapters of this book are, you can say, a kind of a love story in a very very weird way. It's a love story of our character and like our protagonist and a girl in his imagination. That's weird, I know. And it is a very in-depth love story where the main character even goes to like a whole trip with that girl, who is not real, by the way, who is just in his imaginations. And it just starts getting weirder and weirder after that, because this book has kind of a few different characters that you follow. You don't follow the other characters in that much depth. You mainly just follow Luoji, which is the name of the protagonist, if I didn't mention. But it follows other story, and in their story everything is so sci-fi, so philosophical, and everybody's planning how to get rid of this alien invasion and how to counter them. And then you come back to Luoji, and it's just a very weird convoluted love story where he leaves his own like real life girlfriend for this imaginary girl, and then he finds that girl IRL. Or wait a second, I'm going way ahead of myself. He does not find that girl. In the book he just gets powers, because, well, not powers like Superman or something, but okay, we need to push back, and I need to explain to you what the fuck I'm talking about. Okay, so in this book, to counter the aliens, they assign wall facers. The wall facer project is something where they assign 4 to 5 people. I'm not sure exactly how many they were. It was around 4, I think. So they assign 4 people who have all the resources in the world on their fingertips. They have to devise a plan for like to get rid of the aliens, but as you can see from the, if you have read the first book, there are sophons, so they can't really talk about their plan. They just have to make their plan in secrecy and keep it to themselves, and when the alien invasion happens after 200 years, they will go into hibernation and come back to that time and defeat the aliens. That's the whole premise. And Luoji, being like a basic science teacher or something, not no one special or and with any special research, they for some reason make him a wall facer. By the way, no concrete reason is given why they make him a wall facer, and no, you are never told why. They just say that it was a coincidence. But that is something I did not like about the book. I think if they gave a proper reason for why Luoji was a wall facer, out of like the other wall facers are so like highly powered generals and all that, and they just hire a random ass teacher from the road. That's just a bit weird to me. But they give him all the powers, and with all the powers he does not like fight the alien invasion at first. He asks the policeman who was in the first book as well, Daishi, that the policeman helps him find the girl from the world that was in his dreams, and he actually finds it, and then they live together for a while and all that. The first few chapters of this book are just a little bit weird, but they are still extremely interesting, because as I said, we follow some other people and very interesting stuff still happens. And then there is the ETO and how they want to kill the wall facers so alien can invade Earth, and there is that whole story going around in the book. And overall it's very, very interesting. But then after all of this comes the droplet scene. If any of you have read this book, you know what I'm talking about. The last 200 pages of this book are considered to be one of the best sci-fi fiction novels or literature ever written. I'm not really sure if that's true, but they are extremely, extremely good. One of my friends who's reading the book with me, he told me that when I get to the last 200 chapters, I will know, and they are extremely interesting. And I was really hyped about them, and my god, they did not disappoint, because that droplet scene and those few pages, oh man. If you haven't read the book, I'm not going to spoil that scene for you. I want you to go read this book, read the 2 books just because of that scene, because the build up to that droplet scene, and when it happens, it will blow you away. So even though I said that this video is going to have spoilers, that scene I feel like is something that you experience while reading the book. If I explain that scene to you, you won't find it that interesting, to be honest. So you have to go read those books just for that scene, and trust me, it is going to be worth it. But in all of those good things that I mentioned and all of the interesting story elements that this book has, it's not all roses. Why do I say that it's not all good after praising it so much? Because this book has some time skips. As I mentioned, the 200 time skip, which is a very, very good time skip, and I really like how they proceeded with that. But this book has a lot of build up as well. Build up to the alien invasion and how they are going to attack Earth. And the whole book, and even the whole of first book, was about how the aliens are coming. They have the ships launched, and now they are just approaching Earth, and Earth has to figure out in a few hundred years how to stop them. And this book has a lot of that as well. And it all surrounds itself around the wall facers and how they are going to save the Earth, and everything is going to shit and nothing is working and all that. And it has a very, very huge build up that Luoji, our main character, is going to save Earth by doing something. He does something which I'm not going to explain, that has a lot of hope, and then they like get rid of that as well, and they make it seem like that didn't work as well. But then after all of this hype and build up, at the end they just throw everything out, do another time skip, and in those few pages they just end the book like this. Everything happens, everything is saved, and I feel like the book could have been a little bit longer. And the time skip that happens after the 200 year time skip at the end of the book, which is around like 6 months, I think that wasn't necessary. And I think the ending of this book could have been made a bit better. If the book was a slight bit longer, or if they took their time with it, the ending of this book really feels like it was rushed. Because after all of that hype up, I would think that at the end they will give you a very good closure to the whole story, or as far as we have come by now. Then they do that, but it's just too fast. They keep going back. They keep going back and forth on this idea that everything has failed. Now everything is working. Everything has failed. We have a secret plan. Now we have another secret plan, and they just keep bouncing between that. And I think that was not necessary. I think that could have been done in a better way. I'm not sure how, because again, I'm not a writer myself. I just like to read books. But I think that was a bit rushed, or at least it felt a bit rushed to me. But that's just my 2 cents of the whole thing. Overall, I absolutely love the book way better than the Three Body Problem original book. That the Dark Forest really knocks it out of the park. And the ending of the book as well, I don't think it's going to bother many of you. I think it's just going to bother a really low amount of people. But I think most of you are still going to enjoy it. And this book is going to be a big recommendation for me. But for that, you have to read the first book. I don't think you can go into the second book without reading the first book, because in some stories you can do that. In this one, you really can't. Now, last but not the least is going to be Death's End. And I don't really have a lot of thoughts on this book. And the thoughts that I do have are not really good. Even though I have pointed out some bad things about the previous book that I personally did not like, I still think that those books, if not the best, are really good contenders for one of the best sci-fi books of all time. With their ideas and how they pursue those ideas and how they portray everything, I think those 2 books are really good. And if you are into sci-fi type of stuff, you are really going to love those books, and those books are going to be something you remember. But I can't say the same thing about this book. In this video, I mentioned that those 2 books really felt like they were grounded in reality. Everything that was happening in those books really felt that we could imagine ourselves and picture ourselves and put ourselves in those scenarios. Death's End felt too ambitious yet too overwhelming to me, because, dude, I have to talk about the time skips in this book. Throughout this book, in these 500 to 600 pages, the time skip that happens is about 17 million years. And that is as absurd as it sounds, because everything that got built up in the last books, it just absolutely gets thrown out the window, and it really feels like that it's just random bullshit go at this point. And the writer is just throwing stuff at you, even though the ideas are creative, but they don't feel coherent in any way. So I don't really have much thoughts about it. That's why I don't like reading trilogies and stuff, because I feel like at the end, most of the trilogies just end up and the same happened with this one, because this book is really not for me. Even though it expands the universe by a lot, and I mean a lot, but still it just feels so abrupt and so fast paced that it isn't really fun. It's, again, as I said, it's just throwing ideas at the wall and hoping they would work. At least that's what it felt like to me. I won't really like to say bad things about the book, because again, it's a piece of literature. I don't want to shit talk it or badmouth it that much, but simple thing is, it's not for me. It's too fast paced and it just didn't feel coherent to me. So I'm not gonna talk about this book that much. But still, I would like to encourage you to give all 3 books a try and read this one too. It might not be for me, but you might really like it, because in this book it's not just confined to Earth. It has universes and cosmic stuff and other aliens as well, other than the Trisolarans that are in the other 2 books. And it has a lot more stuff to offer, but how it offers it, I just didn't quite like it myself. Now that we have talked about all 3 books, what do I actually think of the whole trilogy? Well, around the internet, I have seen many claims that this might be one of the best sci-fi novels of all time. I really don't think that. I think if you are looking to explore, you can find some really good stuff out there, and I don't think it's something that good or that absolutely amazing, which I would say it's the best of all time. But as I said previously in the video as well, that it is a contender for sure, because the first 2 books especially, I feel like they really hit the mark. if you read them in quick succession, it just feels like one single big book of like some amazing worlds and amazing concepts, and you really get that kick out of it, which you are looking for if you are reading a sci-fi, fantasy or cosmic horror novel. I think it's definitely one of the best sci-fi novels, but then again, I haven't really read that many. And if we are comparing and giving titles to things, I think Dune is just hands down better than this. Maybe I'm just a big fanboy, but I think if we are comparing, then Dune is better. But if we are not comparing, and I really think we shouldn't compare books. For some, it might not be their cup of tea, as it is with like every book basically. But I think if you are a slight bit into sci-fi, you should give it a try. And if you start reading the first book and you feel like it's not your cup of tea or it's just not fast-paced enough, trust me and keep going. Just give it that slight bit of time, those few pages, maybe like 100 or 50 pages. Get through those pages and I am sure you are going to get an amazing time out of the book. I think maybe I was a bit harsh about the third book, but that's just how I'm feeling right now after completing it, and it didn't really feel good. I didn't really feel good or satisfied after reading that book. But for the first one, and especially the first two, which clearly, if you like saw the whole video, you clearly know that the second one is one of my favorites. I think those are absolutely amazing, and I think further down the line I will read the third book or maybe the whole trilogy again, just to have a different perspective on it. Maybe till then I have read more sci-fi books, so I have a good like mind made up of what actual good sci-fi looks like. But yeah, that's just pretty much it. And for what comes after this, I really feel like I'm just tired of the sci-fi genre or even the story genre of books for a bit, because for the past like 2 months, that's the only thing I have read. I think I'm just going to pull back a little bit, and in this month of June, I'm just going to read some philosophy and get into those kind of thought-provoking books, because for now, I am completely like tired of storybooks. And I think that's how many people should read books as well. You should just keep bouncing between storybooks and like other philosophical books as well, because that's how I think you keep growing. And I feel like reading philosophy and those kind of thought-provoking books, it really gives you a perspective on the story books you read as well, because even in Three Body Problem, there are very interesting moral dilemmas that they give you, or moral situations that they give you, that is really fun to think about. And I think that will be it for this video. Let me know if you have read Three Body Problem and how you like it, or if you plan to read it and you got some insight from my video. If you want to continue, if you want to read it or give it a try, let me know down in the comments below. For the book club thing, I don't really have anything right now that in particular that I'm going to read next month. I think I'm just going to explore a bit and see what my options are. I do plan to read on niche a bit, so I might do that, but not really sure. So I think the next book review will be kind of a surprise for you as well, because you don't know what books I'll be reading, because usually at the end I just tell you guys. So I think that will be it. Those were my thoughts on Three Body Problem. I do plan, it's just a plan right now, to do a video where I go through all of the story of Three Body Problem, the first book, in like a very cool narrative manner. Let me know if you're interested for that. I am still 50-50 on the idea if I should do that or not, because it's going to be a pretty long video if I go in detail about the story. And if I upload it and you guys like it, I might do that for the other books as well that I read. Maybe Dune, I can explain the story of that, but it's just an idea. Thank you so much for watching, and bye bye.